Hi, it's Aaron with JSON.Mom. The goal of this video is to share a real use case for JSON.Mom and then build it together. What you're looking at is an example of a T-bill ladder that's easy to keep up to date with JSON.Mom. I'll give you a little background so we can understand the context of this example. T-bills are a financial instrument from the US Treasury. They are sold at a discount to their face value, and when the bill matures, you receive the face value. That's how you earn money by loaning it to the government. T-bills can be uniquely identified by their CUSIP, pronounced CUSIP, and their record date. This date is sometimes called the settlement or issue date. We'll call it record date as that's how it's identified by the Treasury's API that we'll be using. This table shows a T-bill ladder of 4 one-year T-bills where one matures every quarter. The idea is that you get frequent access to the money, and if not needed, you buy another one-year T-bill to keep the ladder and funds growing. Let's start building it. We'll start with a table of only the CUSIPs and record dates. These are the only two pieces of information you'll need to keep this table up to date, and they're available when you purchase a T-bill. We'll look at the Treasury's documentation of their API. Let's grab the full URL and use spreadsheet concatenation to construct a URL that will retrieve the information for each T-bill. A quick refresher. You can concatenate or join values together in a formula using the ampersand. For example, we can type this value, ampersand, and this one, and they become one value. We'll also name specific cells so formulas are easier to read, though this is not necessary. The Treasury's API uses filters to narrow the output, making the data returned easier to manage. We'll use these filters to construct a URL for each T-bill by filtering to its CUSIP and record date. To do this, we use the Treasury's base URL and concatenate or add a question mark indicating we're adding query parameters, often called params. The params we're adding are the filters which the API simply names filter. Now we'll add its value, using the simple syntax defined in the Treasury's documentation. We want to filter the data to only the record where the CUSIP is equal to our first column and the record date is equal to the second column. When you use more than one query param, you join them with an ampersand in the URL. Autofill takes over from here, repeating the pattern, and we get URLs for each T-bill. Notice the URLs are the same except for the filters at the end. We're going to pretend we have oodles of money and make a $100,000 ladder through 4 $25,000 T-bills. The first piece of information we want from the API is the price of the T-bill for every $100 of face value. This is the discounted rate the T-bill is sold at, and the difference from $100 is how much you earn. To figure out how to do this, we'll grab the URL for the first T-bill and take it over to JSON.Mom. We'll put it into the API URL field and use the Explorer to examine the data. This will help us determine the JSON path that will extract the specific piece of data we're interested in. Let's expand the data key and then its first and only entry. When we click on the price per 100, JSON.Mom examines where it is located in the data and fills in the JSON path needed to extract this value. Looking closer at the JSON path, we see it is a $sign indicating the root of the document, .data as it lives under the data key. A 0 in brackets indicates the first set of values under data, as this API could be used to return more than one T-bill. Another dot, and finally price underscore per 100. We'll take that JSON path and put it above the column we want the value to go in. As I've been practicing this demo like a madman, I'll fill in the next two values, but rest assured you can find these in the Explorer and click them to construct the JSON path. Now we're ready to use JSON.Mom. Let's add and name the JSON.Mom URL and our API key. Now we can use the built-in import data function in Google Sheets or web service function in Microsoft Excel to make the API call. The full URL we want to call first starts with the JSON.Mom URL and the /p endpoint. Then we concatenate a question mark indicating we're sending query params to JSON.Mom. We'll add the API key we call the JM key to distinguish it from potential API keys going to the underlying service. The Treasury doesn't require one, so this is easier. Then we add the underlying API URL, which is the URL for the current T-bill. Notice here we need to make use of the encode URL function. This ensures that the data goes to the right place, such as those filters going to the Treasury. We'll also lock this value to the C column with a $, so the reference cell doesn't change when we copy this formula to other columns. Finally, we do the same encoding and locking to add the JSON path, this time locking the row, so the reference doesn't change when we copy this formula to other rows. We'll hit enter, and boom, we get the discounted price for every $100 of face value. Next, we'll copy the formula to the next column and divide by 100. The Treasury's API returns this percentage value as we would read it, but not as it is mathematically represented. We want the mathematical value so we can use it if we want in other formulas, as well as to use the spreadsheet's formatting power. The cost can be calculated directly in the spreadsheet without any API calls. It is simply how many hundreds are in the face value, which is a simple divide by 100, and then multiply that many hundreds by the price per 100. The gain is also simple to do directly in the spreadsheet, and is the face value minus the discounted cost. Finally, we copy the formula again to get the maturity date from the API and format it as a date. That's the end of the hard part. We simply copy these formulas to the other rows, and voila, we have our ladder. With all this information in a spreadsheet, we also can perform simple analytics. For example, we can get the average yield, the average gain, and the total amount our ladder is earning us in a year. Let's hide the rows with our constant values in the URL column to make it easier on the eyes. Lastly, I'll demonstrate how easy it is to keep up to date. As the T-bill in the last row has matured, we have $25,000 in our account. When we roll it into a new T-bill, we'll see the CUSIP and record date on our broker's platform. We'll move this row up and update those values. In only a moment, the API calls will fire and we'll have our up-to-date ladder. Looks like rates are improving. Finally, let's say we got a nice birthday check from Grandma, and we're in a fiscally responsible mood. We'll buy a shorter-term T-bill and represent it here by copying a row and adding the CUSIP and record date. Now we have all the information on this shorter 8-week T-bill to boost our summer vacation fund. In this video, we've seen how JSON.Mom can be used with a public API to enrich our T-bill ladder data, keeping us on top of our finances. Try it yourself at JSON.Mom, and please let me know how you're using it so we can power up your spreadsheets together.